Walk the talk. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. It's meant as a challenge and in some cases as an indictment against those who are quick to declare their strong beliefs about a given topic, but whose lives don't seem to align with their words. In other words, they're hypocritical. They say one thing and do another. And God hates hypocrisy, especially in His people. So in Isaiah chapter 56, verses 1 through 8, God is going to challenge the people of Judah to walk the talk. He's going to call them to live out what they say they believe in real life, in the form of obedience to His commands, and in particular when it comes to their treatment of non-Jews. The people of God saw themselves as special, and they were. They were His chosen possession, but that didn't give them the right to look down their noses at those around them. God did not choose them because they were special or somehow deserved His attention. He chose them in spite of them. And now, He wanted them to extend the same kind of mercy to all those around them. He wanted their external behavior to live up with their expressed beliefs, and with the character of compassion found in their God. Belief and behavior. Confession and conduct. However you choose to describe them, there are two inseparable parts to man's relationship with God. The vast majority of the content of the book of Isaiah has been a stinging indictment against the people of Judah for their failure to live as who they claim to be, the children of God. They were proud of their heritage and quick to brag about their status as the descendants of Abraham. They knew they were God's chosen people and never tired of letting others know about their preferred status with the Almighty. But the problem was that they didn't live like it. Their conduct didn't reflect their confession. And God has already condemned them for their contradictory lifestyle. These people say they are mine. They honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, and their worship of me is nothing but man-made rules learned by rote. Isaiah 29, verse 13. The prophet Jeremiah put it in even more stark terms. Your name is on their lips, but you are far from their hearts. Jeremiah 12, verse 2. Now in chapter 56, God calls on the people of Judah to dramatically alter the way they behave. Keep justice and do righteousness, for soon my salvation will come, and my righteousness be revealed. Isaiah 56, verse 1. This sounds very similar to the words written by the prophet Micah. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6, verse 8. But how were they supposed to pull this off? They had a lousy track record of keeping justice and doing righteousness, and God has made that fact painfully clear. So what was going to be different? What had changed? Notice what God tells them. For soon my salvation will come. He has spent several chapters telling His people that He would one day redeem and restore them. Yes, they were going to suffer because of their sin and rebellion. They would end up in captivity in Babylon. But God would eventually return them to the land of promise. And beyond that, God would one day send His servant, the Messiah, to restore them to a right relationship with Himself. The prophet Ezekiel recorded the promise of God concerning that day. I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleannesses. And from all your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules. You shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Ezekiel 36, verses 24 through 28. So what was to motivate their change in behavior? God's promise of future redemption. Having been told that God had incredible plans in store for them, they were expected to live out their lives in such a way that it reflected their gratitude for His grace and mercy. The Apostle Peter spoke of this very same thing when he wrote, So prepare your minds for action and exercise self-control. Put all your hope in the gracious salvation that will come to you when Jesus Christ is revealed to the world. So you must live as God's obedient children. Don't slip back into your old ways of living to satisfy your own desires. You didn't know any better then. But now you must be holy in everything you do, just as God who chose you is holy. For the Scriptures say, You must be holy because I am holy. 1 Peter 1, verses 1 through 16. The people of God, while waiting on the final fulfillment of the promises of God, were expected to live their lives in keeping with the commands of God, and they're guaranteed to receive a blessing from God when they do so. Blessed are those who honor my Sabbath days of rest and keep themselves from doing wrong. Isaiah 56, verse 2. Obedience brings blessing. But notice that obedience does not bring salvation. God is not telling the people of Judah that he will redeem and restore them if they keep justice and do righteousness. Their efforts at producing holy behavior are not what will bring God salvation. In fact, God will end up saving them in spite of them. But with his promise of their future salvation made known to them, they were to respond in grateful appreciation by willingly pursuing those things that bring glory and honor to God. They were to return the promise of his unmerited favor and their undeserved salvation with an unwavering commitment to do what pleases him. And God provides his people with some practical examples of what keeping justice and doing righteousness should look like in their everyday lives. He uses two distinct groups of individuals to drive home his point: foreigners and eunuchs. In both cases, God seems to be referring to those within these two groups who have aligned themselves with the people of God and become worshipers of Yahweh. But while these individuals could become followers of Yahweh, they were never really treated as genuine members of the family of God. They were still considered outsiders. A eunuch was not allowed to enter the temple because he had violated God's laws as outlined in Deuteronomy 23, verses 1 through 8. But the Jews had taken things too far and were guilty of treating these two groups of people harshly and unjustly. They ostracized them and looked down on them. Rather than treating them as fellow worshipers of Yahweh, they looked down on them as damaged goods. But God wants his people to see things from his perspective. These foreigners or Gentiles who sought to worship and honor him by obeying his laws and keeping his Sabbath were to be made welcome in his family. The day is coming, God reminds his people, when both Jews and Gentiles will worship him in spirit and truth. The faithful and obedient Gentile will enjoy the same eternal blessings as the faithful and obedient Jew. I will bring them to my holy mountain of Jerusalem and will fill them with joy in my house of prayer. Isaiah 56, verse 7. But again, it will not be their faithfulness and obedience that brings about God's favor and future blessings. It will be the result of God's grace. Paul makes it clear that the future salvation to which God is referring in these verses will be based on the saving grace of God, as made possible through the death, burial, and resurrection of his Son. For I am not ashamed of this good news about Christ. It is the power of God at work, saving everyone who believes, the Jew first and also the Gentile. Romans 1, verse 16. God's redemptive plan is all-inclusive. It will include his chosen people, the Jews, but also the Gentiles. It will include eunuchs, prostitutes, tax collectors, fishermen, farmers, governors, and former Pharisees. For the sovereign Lord who brings back the outcasts of Israel says, I will bring others too, besides my people Israel. Isaiah 56, verse 8. So if God is going to graciously include all in his plan of redemption and future restoration, how much more so should we embrace all those he brings into our lives as our spiritual brothers and sisters? Based on God's promise of future salvation, we are to live our lives in such a way that our conduct reflects our convictions. Our behavior should let the world know that we believe all that God has promised to do for us. So as a result, we willingly and gladly obey his call to keep justice and do righteousness, for soon my salvation will come and my righteousness be revealed.